And we're starting with Smackdown, as last night's go-home show before Crown Jewel was actually taped last week, following the October 27th show held at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Roman Reigns and LA Knight met in the ring 24 hours ahead of their title match in Riyadh, and while Reigns tried to be confident, the megastar shut him down at every turn. The two almost came to blows before officials got involved, and while this segment hardly did anything new, it was necessary for a story that has felt somewhat rushed. Knight stood tall over Reigns last week physically, and this week he went over Reigns verbally, building him up as a serious challenger even if the result, to many, is a foregone conclusion. No one believes that the Tribal Chief is going to lose the undisputed Universal Championship until at least WrestleMania, but Knight is still a believable challenger who WWE can return to down the line. In some ways, the megastar may actually be better positioned than the expected man to dethrone Reigns, Cody Rhodes, but Crown Jewel is not the right stage for the end of this legendary reign. Speaking of Rhodes, Knight took a swing at the American Nightmare and his story, saying, "I'm not here to finish something, I'm here to start something," in an obvious shot at Cody's story. LA Knight will almost certainly be leaving Riyadh empty-handed, but an impressive showing against Reigns will do him wonders and prove to WWE officials why he belongs in the main event scene. In a rare promo, Solo Sikoa took to the mic to say he was awaiting the chance to end John Cena, and the 16-time WWE World Champion wasn't sounding like himself on the show. Michael Cole explained that Cena lost half his voice due to a Samoan spike he received from Sikoa last week, which of course actually took place just a few hours earlier. Despite not being 100%, Cena eviscerated Sikoa on the mic, calling the Bloodline's enforcer a bargain basement Taz ripoff, and said he only had a job with WWE because of Roman Reigns. The Taz line actually got a response from the AEW commentator himself, who took to X to simply say, "You can't see me." Cena's roasts are always fun, but often lead to his opponents looking worse in the long term, even if they beat him in the end, just as Austin Theory from their feud earlier this year. Cena's line damaged the image of the protected Sikoa, who can hopefully make up for it against Cena, but with John not having a quality performance in some time, both have a lot to prove. What did you make of Sikoa's promo and Cena's scathing retort? Sound off in the comments below. Crown Jewel already features a stacked card, but it could also feature former WWE Champion The Miz, albeit in a non-competitive role. According to a local source, the A-lister will host an edition of Miz TV with Grayson Waller and a famous local personality, and while we don't know who that is, BWE says it isn't a soccer player. That rules out Cristiano Ronaldo, who had been rumored for the show, but on X, Waller took a shot at Ronaldo, sharing a gif of him while calling soccer a mediocre sport full of people flopping. Ronaldo's club, Al Nassr, are facing Al Khalij in the King of Champions tournament, and with him seemingly out of the equation, we'll have to see who the other guest on Miz TV ends up being. Before facing off at Crown Jewel, Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio had a weigh-in on Smackdown, which did a lot more than build towards their US title match. Paul recently defeated Dylan Dennis in a boxing match after the two traded shots with each other, and the pair even had a weigh-in of their own. That weigh-in saw Dennis hit Paul on the head with a microphone, and sure enough, the segment between Rey and the Maverick saw Mysterio strike his upcoming opponent with a mic. It seems clear that WWE was poking fun at Dennis, who Paul would defeat in their match, and now the Maverick hopes to keep his winning ways going and become the US champion tonight. SmackDown also saw Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits chat with Logan Paul ahead of Crown Jewel, but it may be a much different superstar who joins Lashley's faction. After Paul left the segment, B-Fab appeared and wanted to discuss business with Lashley, so it may not be long before we see the Hit Row alum officially join sides with the impressive trio. If you watched WWE Main Event this week, you'll know that the show sounded different, as Wade Barrett was on commentary, and it was Blake Howard who was at the desk with Byron Saxton. It's unclear if this is a permanent move, but fans will be keeping a close eye on the commentary dynamics, which have undergone multiple changes over the past year or so. This week's main event saw Kaden Carter versus Blair Davenport and Akira Tozawa versus Wes Lee, and with these NXT names around, it was fitting that the NXT Level Up commentator was at the show. Given that NXT superstars are often given the chance to perform on main event, this commentary adjustment might not necessarily indicate an immediate main roster call-up for anyone involved, and we'll have to see what's next. Back to Smackdown, where Austin Theory faced Kevin Owens in a match that just had an odd atmosphere to it, with very little interest in what was happening. With Grayson Waller on commentary, those calling the match certainly seemed interested in what was happening, but the same can't be said for the crowd. The fans didn't seem to care whenever Theory was in control, and even the responses to Owens were muted, and throughout the match, it never felt like Theory was really challenging KO. Theory has struggled to get crowds invested, slowly moving more into the Baron Corbin role on the main roster, as he has talent to work with anyone, but not enough charisma to interest fans. Technically speaking, the match was fine, and saw Owens win with the stunner, and hopefully Owens versus Waller, who was the arguable highlight of this match, should be more exciting. After Shotzi defeated Chelsea Green last week, the WWE Women's Tag Champions dared Shotzi to find a partner this week, and she did just that in Charlotte Flair. Green and Piper Niven took control in the early stages of the match as they worked on Shotzi, with a shift in momentum only really coming with a tag to Flair. A diving crossbody wiped out both champions before Flair hit Green with a big foot to secure the win, and post-match, the faces shared a heartwarming embrace in the ring. This victory meant that the newly formed team had earned a future title shot at the Tag Team Championships, but a date for the match has not been made official yet. Do you think Charlotte Flair and Shotzi will capture the Women's Tag Team Championships down the line? Let us know in the comments section below. In a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, Pretty Deadly defeated the Brawling Brutes in what was by far the best match of the night, rightly earning "This is awesome" chants. The finish saw the boys send Ridge Holland through a stack of barrels, and then send Butch through a table to get the win in a match that should put Pretty Deadly in line for a tag title shot. 24 hours before she faces Women's Champion Io Sky at Crown Jewel, Bianca Belair was ready to take the fight to Bayley, but was attacked backstage by Damage Control during an interview. Due to this pre-match assault, Nick Aldis announced that Damage Control were banned from ringside for this match, which is a somewhat odd call to make. On the surface it makes sense, but Aldis did not ban the group from ringside for the Crown Jewel match, where there is far more on the line. Without Sky and Dakota Kai at ringside, Belair dominated her match early on, but Bayley was ready to take advantage of every and any mistake the EST made. Belair used the KOD to get the win, and post-match would send Bayley through the announce table the role model exposed with another KOD. The EST looked as good as she's ever been in the match, and despite this being a match we've seen plenty of in the past, this was an energetic effort from both women. Bayley may have slowed down a bit in recent years, but remains a crafty veteran, and guided the match along while Belair showed off in her warm-up for the title match in Riyadh. The result was obvious, but Belair showed her ruthless focus afterward by sending Bayley through the announce table, potentially a hint of a more dangerous focus than she's had before. This week's SmackDown had a clearly muted crowd, which can hardly be seen as a surprise given that they were watching their third and fourth hours of wrestling on the one night. Despite this, the superstars gave a lot, with the main event and the Donnybrook match landing as rare wrestling matches on a show that often doesn't give performers that kind of time. Reigns' time on SmackDown always gives the blue brand a spark, and John Cena was seriously cooking with his promo, and even smaller segments delivered what they needed to. The Rey Mysterio Logan Paul weigh-in was to the point, but if WWE had given more time to the women's tag match over the frequent recaps, this show would have reached greater heights. Still, this was a focused go-home show, highlighting the key matches for Crown Jewel, which ultimately is the purpose WWE needed before this premium live event. Whenever Eddie Kingston appears in the ring, fans can expect a violent outing from the Mad King, but now one of the ROH World Champion's outbursts has landed himself in a lot of hot water. In a statement, ROH Board of Directors member Stokely Hathaway revealed that Kingston has been temporarily suspended after putting his hands on Hathaway and threatening to, quote, beat my ass. Kingston won't be appearing on ROH programming, and Hathaway made this clear that it will also affect AEW, as he was unable to appear on last night's Rampage as well. Hathaway said that if Kingston puts his hands on him again, then the Mad King will be in the unemployment line, and we'll have to see how Eddie reacts to this suspension. In January, Impact Wrestling will go back to being TNA, starting with its Hard to Kill pay-per-view, and Impact president Scott D'Amore has some big plans. Speaking with Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, D'Amore shared his high expectations for 2024 and this new era of TNA, as he said, "We know we're good at what we do, and we're going to be a game changer and a force in 2024, so stay tuned. You'll see some changes to our shows. The pacing is going to be quicker, there will be a shakeup talent-wise, and you're going to see us disrupt and change wrestling. We're going to push the limits like we did with Ultimate X and King of the Mountain. That might mean every once in a while, we'll sometimes fall on our face in a reverse battle royal, but hopefully not too often. We owe it to our fans to take chances." Morale within Impact is said to be very high right now as the company prepares for the change, and time will tell how the company fares once the TNA relaunch happens in just 70 days' time. With his WWE career over, Matt Riddle is looking for his next big appearance, and recently, it was noted that he and Jake Paul are in conversations about a potential bout. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was reported that Riddle and his reps have spoken with Paul, and that Jake has no interest in fighting under MMA rules, where Riddle would have the experience edge. Riddle is willing to do a boxing match, and at this point, the ball's in Paul's court, with a report adding that it's always been up to Paul, since he's the bigger mainstream star. While Riddle has some name value in wrestling and MMA, he's not a name in boxing, and boxing fans may be put off by the fight, which would come at a time Paul is trying to be taken more seriously. Whether this fight happens or not, the two sides are at least talking, but until a date and location are announced, it's just as likely that the match won't happen as much as it will. Back to WWE, as the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile were called up to the main roster this week, and it may not be long before Bron Breakker is also a main roster talent. The Observer reports that Breakker has been ready for the call-up for some time, so don't be surprised if the two-time NXT champion is a regular on Raw or Smackdown soon enough. One name fans won't see on WWE TV is Mace, who during a Reddit AMA revealed his new ring name as Mace Madden. It seems the name is a mix of two of his WWE names, Mace and Dio Madden, and we're wishing him well in whatever is next in his career. We've got some concerning news regarding Evan Karagias, as the former WCW star was arrested by Belmont police this week. In official records, Karagias faces charges including simple assault and injury to personal property, and was released after posting a $2,500 bond. Karagias competed in WCW from 1997 to 2001, where he won the WCW Hardcore and WCW Cruiserweight Championships, and was also a part of 3 Count with Shane Helms and Shannon Moore. This is an unfortunate situation, and Karagias' legal troubles are far from over, and we'll make sure to follow his case for further updates. Earlier this week, Sikoa was made an official part of AEW's roster, joining his brother Roosh as All Elite, but their other brother, Dragon Lee, will be sticking with WWE. In the Wrestling Observer, it was revealed that Lee has signed a new main roster deal with WWE after being quietly called up to Smackdown not too long ago. When speaking to wrestlers who know the US wrestling scene, Lee was told he'd be lost in the shuffle in AEW, so the Dragon will be spending his days on WWE's main roster for a long time to come. And we're ending with Ricochet, Giovanni Vinci, and ex-WWE star Big Damo, who competed in a 3-on-1 handicap match against an unlikely opponent. In a clip which has gone viral, the trio can be seen battling a lioness in a tug-of-war, and the two sides seemed pretty matched. Since the video was filmed, Damo has parted ways with WWE, but Vinci and Ricochet are still around, and who knows, perhaps we'll see a rematch in this unique game of tug-of-war.